everybody doing? My apologies for last Wednesday, technical difficulties, but the devil was busy, but we are back in full force. Thank you so much for your texts and your calls. I appreciate that so much. So What's Up Wednesday is all about when we talk about everything mental health. We also added American treasures, African American treasures. These are people who have paid the way for us, for freedom, for diversity, just going through sweats and tears of everything. So what I realize is this is March. Everybody say March Madness. This is Women History Month. And I have highlighted a few people. In honor of Women's History Month, it's a great time to celebrate the achievements and strength and contributions of women, especially in the ways they educated us, uplifted us, inspired us, and may we never forget the blood, sweat, and tears these women endured, giving us knowledge and freedom. Okay. Our first one is Miss Shirley Chisholm. Who remembers her? She is the first black woman elected to the U.S. Congress and ran for president in 1972. I remember my daughter Imani attending a special homegoing at the Grand Lake Theater in Oakland, California, presented by her goddaughter, Miss Barbara Lee. Miss Lee shared personal stories such as she is originally from Barbados. Did anyone know that? I did not know she was from Barbados. She was also awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Also an ambassador to Jamaica. After retiring, she taught at Mount Holyoke College. She is a 7-term Congresswoman from 1972 to 1983. Barbara Lee picked up the torch and became the U.S. Representative of California from 1998 through 2025. So she was very instrumental in her life, and that's good to have a good mentor that you just follow straight into her path from 1998 to 2024. That's dedication. Okay, she really said some things and led her in the right way. Miss Chisholm inspired Miss Lee to dedicate her life to the wellness of people. Miss Lee has not retired. She is now the mayor of Oakland, California. Kudos to her, and she is 79 years young. That's so good. So, also, Harriet Tubman is one of our women that we are going to highlight for women's history. Harriet Tubman, the movie, if you never saw the movie Harriet Tubman, it is a great movie. Every time I see that movie, and I saw it numerous of times, when I see it, it just gives me so much strength, endurance, and it just reminds me of the things that our ancestors went through. For her to be able to just, figure out how to do the Underground Railroad. But do you guys also ever thought about how the Underground Railroad was created? Well, it's a book called Minty. That was Harriet Tubman's nickname that her dad nicknamed her. But it tells through the book is growing up. She was very rebellious. As you can see, she was, she grew up. So that was pretty much planted in her as a child. She was very rebellious. She loved this rag doll. But one of the things that I do love reading the book was he taught her actually how to maneuver through the swamps and how to stay still when the horsemen was, coming when slaves escaped. So it was really good. I bought my daughter Imani a book, that book, and of course when you buy a book, she was really small, about that book for her, and I read it, and I never forgot that book. And I was like, if any one of you guys out there, a birthday is coming up, and a little girl that needs some confidence, let her read that book. And then also sit and look at the movie as well. The book is a great read. It's a really great read, and the movie is also good as well. So, Also, I was looking, Spelman College, Janetta Cole was the first African American in 100 years of Spelman College. She holds the prestigious as a president there from 1989 to 1997. She is 89 years young. I mean, when I say black women are still working out here, it's work to be done. She actually chairs the Global Diversity and Inclusion Institute. Wow, that's amazing, right? When I say we keep going, it's our ancestors. Women, it is our ancestors that continue to push us. That's why I'm so glad to have Women's History Month, so we can always remember where that strength lies. That we are standing on strong shoulders, okay? Also, I want to highlight Diana Krall. Does anyone remember Diana Krall? Diana Krall was the first African American woman to actually have a show called Julia. When I say she was so beautiful and poised on that show, she was a widower. Her husband had died in the war. She was a single mom, but she was a nurse. Very poised, articulate. She had a young son, and she worked, like I said, in the doctor's office. I thought that was so good. One of the other highlights of Diana Krall is she also played in the movie Claudine. And Claudine was such a good movie that it was about a mother on welfare who the mother on welfare had 5 kids, and you get a chance to watch it. The soundtrack is amazing by Curtis Mayfield. Anybody remember Curtis Mayfield? Yeah, I'm an oldie but goodie girl. But it's such a beautiful movie, but it also tells you about the systemic racism goes from welfare and, you know, just a lot of different things I won't get into. But her love interest in the movie was James Earl Jones. May he rest in peace. That was such a good movie. So get a chance to watch it because you'll be dancing all over the place. You know what I mean? Also, I remembered, if people remember Dynasty. That old, dating yourself. Dynasty, right? Dynasty was a movie back in, I think it was the 80s or 80s going into the 90s. And Diana Krall starred as Dominique Devereaux. And she was so poised, came in with that white cream suit and that white fur, baby. Couldn't nobody tell nobody on TV, nothing. Okay? She was just everything I thought, right? So make sure that you get a chance to see those. And like I said, listen to the soundtrack. It is a really good soundtrack. So this is what we talked about last week, but we had a glitch, right? So we talked about parenting and building. These are only suggestions that I get from books, that I look at documentaries. So, you know, I just take little, you know, creative, you know, kind of rear my children this way. So having examples and tools to adapt to a better, you know, to be a better person first. I always say you got to be a better person, then you become a better parent to rule your kids. So communication, quality time. Most of the time, where parents are lost, you know, through trying to just navigate as a parent, just day-to-day stuff, you know. So you want to just make sure building a foundation. So we talk about building a foundation. Foundation is just like a house. So when they're going to build a house, they're going to make sure that they have the cement. Okay, because you want the strongest thing, so it can withstand tornadoes, earthquakes, floods, things like that. So that's the same thing that you want to do when you building your house. So these are just, like I said, some suggestions, and I'll talk a little bit about my background, how I grew up, close-knit family. So my neighborhood was very diverse. We came together for community events, such as movie night in our basketball field. Cakewalks. Who remember cakewalks? You guys know what cakewalks are? Some of y'all don't even know. Okay, so look it up. Cakewalk. Heaven and hell parties. I definitely remember what heaven and hell parties. They would be. You have a balloon when you walk in the door. I think you pay like $1, you know, because it was always like a fundraiser. But you punch the balloon, and it either going to write a little piece of paper going to say heaven or hell. So you get one for heaven. It was just something cute. Don't get, all your panties in a ruffle. But it was just something cute. So for heaven, you got ice cream. For hell, you got hot chili. So nobody wanted the hot chili. We had block parties, fish fries, watching the guys play basketball. It was just a fun time. I always say when it comes to kids these days, they don't really get a chance to have a good time. So a lot of times we as adults, we need to create that. In our subdivision, in our community, we need to bring those things back because that's really what kids are missing. And remember back, back when you was a peer teen, you might not remember, like I guess it was like the 70s or whatever, and you needed a male escort to go to like parties, things like that. I was that person. So I needed someone when I got invited to parties, classmates, then someone had to escort me to the party. It wasn't like a formal party. It was just a regular birthday party, right? But my parents was pretty strict, so it was usually like always a male, So my brothers, one of my brothers took me, but then they moved away once I got a little bit older. So thank God for my boy cousins, Rod and Matt. Matt Cully, may you rest in peace. You were such an inspiration in my life. Rod took me to so many different things. I thank God for my cousins and my community because, like I said, that's my foundation. So my cousin would take me to my basketball game, to prom. He would even went to prom with me, to dance and things like that. He just wanted to make sure that I had the best experience, and I really appreciate that as well. And then I had my girl cousin, Terry, who went to Eastside. When I probably was in elementary, she would take me to game, just kind of like, getting me familiar with, being out or whatever, out of my little comfort zone. We also had parades. Remember the 4-H clubs? Yeah, 4-H clubs, junior achievement. That is still around, junior achievement. I grew up Catholic, went to private school, close-knit family. I had a gobs of cousins in my neighborhood, so I never felt alone at all. Even though I was the oldest girl, I still had a lot of older cousins. I probably got like about 6 or 7 older girl cousins and maybe like 7 or 8 boy cousins. So that's how my foundation started, right? So I'm all about community, all about family, and just, making sure people are good because people made sure I was good. So you have to go back and remember the people who made you feel good, and then also make sure that your kids are good, the community is good. That's where African Americans, where we are like it. It's not making sure everybody's like for themselves, or next door you don't want nobody whipping your kids, you don't want nobody saying anything to your kid. How else are your kids going to learn? I could say like no abuse, but certain things your kids need that. Like certain things that I probably said on her, you're like, oh, I didn't even know that. We need to build community. We need to think about ourselves, okay? So much is happening in the world, and we are focused more and more and more. More and more. Every time I hear somebody say, I need my peace, yeah, because so many things are happening. We need to get a grip. This social media is really taking over. So we have to make sure when you talk about my peace, we talk about relationships, communication, our children. Mental health goes in so many aspects. Like I said, healthy mental health, unhealthy mental health, okay? And we're trying to get to a place where we can be peaceful, non-violence, and just being able to live our best life and bringing up our kids to live our best life as well. So when we talk about we juggling everything and we trying to breathe in between, you know what I mean? So we're going to make sure that we get some good things out of it, some good tools, okay? Like I said, these are only suggestions. I do have a degree in psychology, but I'm not, these are suggestions, okay? So most of us was sheltered. We grew up in the 60s and 70s, if you can remember, because I'm 62. So, almost 62. But when you think about the happy times and, you didn't even know outside of your, community that people did not even like you, because of the color of your skin, that's devastating within itself. That takes away your childhood, as being a child. You're like, what? So, and of course, still today, people still don't like you because of your skin color. But guess what? We have to make sure our mental health is intact because that's not our problem. That's their problem, correct? Of being a parent, is the hardest thing to be, especially African American parents, because we always worried about our sons, we're worried about our daughters. We just like praying, you know what I mean? Praying that everything is okay. Then, you know, we have to eventually take that childhood, that child innocence, and talk about racism, and talk about segregation, and the injustice. And, you know, when our children start driving, we have to give that talk. Nobody else has to give that talk. They don't even know what the talk is. We all know, and we said, did you give the talk? We know what that is, so we have to make sure that our kids go out prepared. And then we also have to make sure that we have conversations with our children, because one thing last night, I could not even sleep because the little girl, Jada, I don't know what state she's in, but she was being bullied. And when I say that just took hold, because when you about community and you about people and things like that, that tears at your heart. And when you a mother, a parent, and these kids just kept bullying her, she ended up fighting them, got a concussion, you know, and she passed away. And I just felt like, oh my goodness, who are we raising? Who are we raising? And I was really mad about the bus driver who let those kids off at her saying stop. Okay, but I'm gonna move on. Okay, but like I said, we have to have those talks. Nobody else have to have those talks, but we have to make sure when our kids walk out, our husbands walk out, we walk out, that we good. Okay. So, like I said, so when we talking about, I want to talk about relationships, because we got to make sure that when our children are starting dating and everything, that they know the questions to ask. Yes, it is an interview. It is an interview from that person to that person. Because back in the day, me growing up, and you meet somebody, or somebody gonna take you to the prom, first thing your people say, who? First thing your people say, who they people? Do we know them? The Smiths, the Joneses. Who was them? Oh yeah, they went to school. If they good, we have to go back to that part. What do they do? You know what I mean? All questions are essential to entering a relationship. That's just like a friendship. Because a lot of times when you see people years later, they're not the same people. They done been to all kind of stuff. So you need to like bag up and be like, hold on, we're going to talk on the phone and see just what you're doing. So when we talk about relationships, gone are the days that when we was in high school and we didn't know any better, and we would say, do you like me? I like you. Or, oh, he's so cute, I want to have his baby. You remember Salt and Pepper talking about that? Girl, we can't be doing that no more, okay? We are no longer saying that, okay? We are interviewing both ways. The guy should interview the girl, too. The girl should interview and ask questions. And don't be afraid to ask questions, okay? Because when you don't ask questions, the crack in the foundation, it's a crack in the foundation. Because you get with somebody and you are attached to that person. Honey, if you have a one-night stand or oops baby or whatever, you are attached to that person and every piece of DNA they have, okay? So the father carries 70% of that gene. And if that gene is an addictive gene, a mental gene, 70%. The Y gene, that's half of this. That guy carries half of this, and the woman only carries her hand that makes the Y. So just take this, that. So you definitely have to ask questions, okay? Because you don't want to end up, you know, because you didn't answer the questions, and now you have a child, or you got problems with the person. You know, at least you could say, I tried. And then also you want to make sure, do they have morals? How are they parenting skills? We're talking about relationships. And this goes also for adults as well, but you definitely want to have it with your kid. Because as a parent, you're going to be stuck with the grandchild. You know, it's going to be visiting you or whatever. You know, you want to know, like, what's their goals? College, job, trade, what they thinking, what they been doing. You know, I heard somebody say, you need to look, well, I know when I was back in the day, I'd be like, I need a check stub, and I need a background check, baby. I was not playing up in Oakland, okay? So that's exactly, I'll be like, and they be like, what? I remember dating this guy, he went and got a job, sure did. You got to also know about people's credit. You know, do they pay their bills on time? Because that reflects you. You can't be like, oh, yeah, he cute, or he telling you this or that. No, you got to make sure. When you talk about getting apartments, when you talk about, you know, buying a home, you got to make sure that you're on the same page. And that comes to communication and healthy mental health, okay? Asking the right questions, because you ain't got time to be fumbling. You ain't got time. That's what I say. We only live once, okay? So we need to live the best life. But a lot of times back then we didn't have the questions, but now we have the questions. So therefore, take those questions and ask. Okay? So like I said, when you talk about, getting together in relationships with parents or whatever, or blended families, or somebody who already have a child, those are the things that you got to take into consideration. Do you want to be, a stepmother, a step parent, because that takes a lot. You know what I mean? You want to know, like, what religion is that person? You don't want to be unequally yoked. That's what the Bible says, unequally yoked. You want to be on the same page. Is that person traditional? I'm very traditional. Okay, my grandfather was a very traditional person. So I kind of grew up like that, holiday celebration, just, family reunions and things like that. Just always bringing the family together. So you definitely these are questions you definitely want to ask. You don't want to be out in the cold and be like, oh, shoot, there's a whole bunch of questions I think I should ask. Now you got a headache. Now you are unhealthy because you didn't know the questions. So like I said, these are definitely suggestions. Also, do they got a police record? And what's on the record? Certain things like that. How many arrests? And for what? These are questions you got to make sure. Like I said, have the talk. So relationships with the parent. Do that guy have, you already know, we've been saying this forever. This is one that we didn't know. How is the relationships with that man's mother, and how is the relationship with his family? That I don't talk to my family. Well, okay, what happened? Because there's always two sides to a story. And I realized that when somebody break up with somebody or something like that, and they're like, oh, my ex this or that, sometimes it's good to talk to the ex and be very cordial, because they can tell you things that you didn't know and that person is hiding. That's just me. That's my opinion. Maybe I'm a little too nosy. I don't know. Any mental health, guys, you really definitely want to know. Do that person do drugs? You know what I mean? Because addictive gene, like I said, that father carries that 70% of that DNA. And so if they're addicted, I remember taking a class, Sons of Alcoholics, at the University of San Diego. Yes. And it talks about sons of alcoholics. And 9 times out of 10, it's a 3 generation. The 4th generation will maybe be addicted, an alcoholic. So those are things you want to put in your head, because if you're trying to go for mental health and a healthy mental health, you want to check the boxes. I'm not saying everybody's going to be perfect, but some things you probably definitely need to make sure at least you know what you're dealing with. Correct, guys? So asking a lot of questions. We're not doing that. Do you like me? Yes or no? No, we're not doing that. Okay? So like I said, that person is attached to you for the rest of their life. You have an oops baby with that person, and whatever that child has, autism or whatever it is, then you also have to be there now. Now it's like, oh, if I would have knew. You never can have too much information. And sometimes you just sit back and listen. People will tell you who they are, whether they talk or whether they don't talk. I always say that. People who talk tell you stuff. People who don't talk tell you stuff too. So make sure you want to do that. So when we talk about blended families, take it slow. These are adult relationships I'm talking about. Take it slow with the kid. Don't try to do an instant bond, because it's going to be like, I don't know you. My mom may know you, because most of the time, well, some of the time I don't know. Maybe I'm old school. But when you dating somebody, you don't really take them around your kids that early. So it's like, my mother know you, but I don't know you. Whichever. So you want to make sure that child bonds, do some outdoor activities and things like that, but don't rush it. You know what I'm saying? Respect the child's relationship with the other parent. You want to make sure that it's no nothing. And I find that when it's something, it's their insecurities, with that other person. If you done with somebody, you done. You just need to come get your child. Because we done, we can talk, we can laugh or whatever. And that's maturity. And a lot of times I don't see maturity, okay? I see a lot of abandoned issues, which has a lot to do with mental health. Okay, so you want to make sure, let the step parent build authority, respect, or have parents do the disciplining until you create trust, with that child. Okay, make house rules and stick to those house rules. You as a parent, you guys are a team. It's like coaches. When you go out, you got 2 coaches on one team. They both gonna come together and say, "This is the plan." So you don't fumble the ball, and don't let them see at all that they can manipulate one parent or whatever. It's like, oh, did you ask your mom? Did you ask your mom? Did you ask your dad? Be on one page. Be on one page, okay? Chores. I grew up with chores. Every Saturday morning, my mother playing Aretha Franklin and Nancy Wilson. That was like, get up time. Let's go. It's time to clean up. Everybody know, if you want to watch the Jackson 5 cartoons, if you want to watch Soul Train on Saturday mornings, then you better get up and start doing your chores, unless you're going to miss it, because you know it wasn't no VCR. No VCR. So make sure you have family meeting, and make sure to check in, because the thing about it, our kids are going to school. It's so much going on, and you just want to make sure that if you knew the conversation, you can help them maneuver and navigate the conversation better than jumping up and being aggressive about it, or like, oh yeah, what? So you want to make sure that your kids use the paper trail, okay, and teach them how to, write letters. You know what I mean? And that's a paper trail. Write emails. Email is a legal document. So you want to make sure that, stay united. Like I said, you're the coaches. The coaches determine the play, right? Okay. So again, I can't stress this enough, right? I blended family as well. Mother and son dances with your son. Make sure you form a relationship with your son, because that's the best relationship, is a mother and son relationship. That mother showed that son how to have a good relationship with his wife, his girlfriend. So as mothers, go out and have a good time. What's going on? Me and my son, we talk, communicate, and I want to make sure, like, I want to have conversations. I don't want, you ain't going to give me no yes or no. No, I'm like, what's going on? Let's talk. Because first of all, you want to know, when you talking other than yes and no, then you also find out how their mental is with your kids. You know what I mean? So then you be like, you're able to guide them. Because one thing we all know, our kids do not get a second chance. They don't get a first. So we got to make sure to guide them. We got to make sure to prepare them for what's out there in them streets, okay? Because we know what's in them streets. So you got to make sure of that, okay? So father-daughter dances. Again, father and daughter, they had the best relationship. Me and my dad had the best relationship. He died when I was 13, but my dad was the type of person, he would come in the room and sit on my bed. We just had conversations. We would sit at the kitchen table, just have conversations. He would guide me. I remember I wanted a boyfriend. He was like, why do you want a boyfriend? I'm like, all my friends do. He's like, that's not a good explanation. I remember it was the gold tooth era in the 70s. And baby, I wanted me a gold tooth. And my dad was like, okay, when you're 16, which he probably knew I would forget because it was a little fade. But just having conversation, and I remember those conversations. I remember my dad. I remember I used to get my hair done all the time, press and curl, because it wasn't perm back then. Hard press and curl, looking like a press though, looking like a perm. And I remember one time I didn't roll my hair up, and my dad woke me up and was like, "Hey, why you didn't roll your hair up?" I'm like, "I didn't feel like it." He was like, don't take this back, but he was like, if a woman don't have time for herself, what men will? He told me that I was about 12 years old, and I'm like, I'm 12 years old. But I took that and I said, have time for yourself. So make sure no matter what, you dress up for you, okay? Because it shows that you care and you love yourself. So that's what I took from that. But also it said, sometimes, you got twins. Twins are different. All our kids are different. Like, I remember my mom saying, oh, you guys are so different than oil and water. Each child is different. So when he's like, oh, I'm trying to raise them the same, they're not the same. The personalities are not the same. So each conversation is going to be different. You're going to guide them different. The oldest one is going to need different from the middle child. The youngest one's going to be different. You know what I mean? So, like, I have a 30-year-old, I have a 22-year-old, I have a 20-year-old. They all different. They all doing different things. So you have to make sure to guide them differently and give them the best advice. Because guess what? You ruin them for your grandkids. Not ruin, but you're raising them to have good grandchildren, because they're going to be good parents, okay? So that's what we got to do. So also, when we talk about relationships, because a lot of parents don't like to talk about sex with their children. that's a need, because there's a lot of kids out here that's having unprotected sex or looking at somebody like teenagers out of school, in school. You know, teen pregnancy is still on the rise. I was looking at statistics that said 20,000 HIV cases in Atlanta alone. 20,000. Yes, my background is substance abuse and mental health. I also work with HIV clients as well, and clients that hepatitis C. I did that probably like about 15, 17 years. So I know what I'm talking about, having conversations with people, giving them life skills and things like that. But also, like I said, 20,000 African Americans. So that means HIV and AIDS is still on the rise. And we just sitting back coasting, looking at somebody thinking they don't have it. Yeah, looking at somebody you won't know. But the thing about it is you need to wrap it up, tape it up, or whatever. But it is still out there. So make sure that even if you go, when you go or you meet somebody that you're serious with, then you need to have a 6-month window, 6 months present. Say like, let me see, this is March, so you don't do anything to September. So you got 6 months in front, right? And hopefully 6 months behind. But still, wrap it up. When you go take the HIV test, you go together to take the test, and you definitely go back and get the results together. Okay? I gave results pre and post test. This is real. I've seen HIV people, giving tests, and people have, positive tests and dying from HIV. I was right there in the pandemic, was it 1995 to 2000 and something. I worked directly with HIV clients. So like I said, it's 20,000 in Atlanta alone. Okay, so wrap it up, go home, go to sleep, do something, turn over, I don't know, okay? But you attach to that person the rest of their life, like I always say. The oops babies, real feelings. So make sure, you do what you need to do. Okay, this is, like I said, suggestions. So when we talk about education, find a time, get off those social media, stop talking on the phone, set your alarm, have a schedule, and let people know that this is a time for my kids to do their homework. This is a time if they need me to help them with their homework. But kids have to learn how to schedule, because you teaching them from first grade. Also, they looking like my mother know that it's important. My dad know that education is important. My grandfather know, whoever that the child is living with, education is fun. This is the time when you come home from school. We're doing homework. Okay, we're doing cursive writing. We're doing printing, because I'm a stickler when it comes to printing. My oldest know anyway. But yes, so make sure if it's from 4 to 6, my kids had no TV through the week. I may have later, when they got a little older, I let them, we definitely listened to like Disney Channel back then. But like I said, my kids are 20, 22. These are just, like I said, suggestions that work for me. Okay. And, but the reason why it worked for me, because when I was in high school, my mother was just expecting me to, finish school. But then I realized that I needed a little more structure. And I remember calling one of my friends in high school, Evelyn Reese. And her mom was a school teacher at Rock Junior High, and her mom was really strict when it came to her and her sister structure as far as homework and practicing their musical instrument. And I just remember calling one time, and she's like, I got to do my homework from this time to this time. I got to do this. And I was like, wow, structure, organization. No, I didn't do it in high school. I did graduate high school, but I did it with my kids. Once I had my kids, God would give you all those, different suggestions and things. And I was like, you know what? I'm just got to be that person, that's that organized person. So I made sure from the time that even my oldest, that's 30, that it was structured, that she knew that I knew that education was important. Okay? Because believe it or not, when a boy is in 3rd grade and cannot read, they are building prisons. And the prisons are on the New York Stock Exchange. Did you know that? Yes, I used to sit on the committee maybe about 5 years ago, the stock committee. So it was pipeline to prison. Okay? And a lot of observations on, because I'm a substitute in school, so I get a chance to see different things, okay? So you want to make sure that your child, especially your little brown boy, can read, because if not, they're tallying up and you don't even know they're tallying up. Okay? They got all these EIP, IEP, all these different things. My suggestion, hurry up and get your kid through that system and make sure that you work with that child. If you're a grandparent, an uncle, or whatever, work with your sister. Help her with, if you have time, help. We need to form a community. Help your sister with her children if she's too busy. Okay, I know a lot of people going out being athletes and things like that, but make sure they know how to read, they know how to write, and they know how to do this new math, as they say. So make sure that, okay, I cannot stress that enough. Like I said, create study time, no social media. The thing about it when it comes to social media, but I'm going to say one thing that I have to make sure. So when you have children that's entering high school, and they just act crazy and they fumble the ball in 9th and 10th grade, and they decide at 11th and 12th, oh, I'm going to get myself together. Okay, then when they get ready and they decide they want to go to college, and they sign that FAFSA, FAFSA is that financial aid, they are denied. Remember 2 years ago what happened? So I'm telling you guys this, make sure your kids are not in there doing ISS, getting in trouble. Any contact with the police officer is a contact. Do you understand? That denies you financial aid. I know you didn't know it. It's a lot of people that not know it. Because I go out and I tell people, I'm like, look at here, tell your brother, tell your sister, because you want to get yourself together. Then all of a sudden, it's like, what? They're not going to tell you that, okay? So make sure that no police contact. Tell your kids to blow that off. And those little four walls, that little time in high school is very little time. You don't have time to be messing it up over trying to be, the baddest, or trying to be in the fight, trying to be whatever. Okay? You need to be on your JOB, getting your work. Like I used to tell my 30-year-old, you might need that, girl, this is a job. When you go to, she didn't speak to nobody. Nobody ain't speaking to her, baby. She was serious about that because her mama made sure that she was serious. Now, my middle child, she did good, but you have to give a little bit more reinforcement on that. My baby boy, he was good. He's an honor student, so he just got it. I think he got it. Some kids, they get it from the oldest, the second, and they know what to be expected. So that one thing. But like I said, if they're going to college, no contact with the police at all, okay? So like I said, the cell phone, social media, get them things out of here, okay? I also want to make sure when you talk about my kids, they just had started I think maybe 3 years, and they was probably like 15, 13, and 14 or whatever, and social media was really on the rise. They had cell phones. But what we decided was at 10 o'clock, whatever they bedtime, because kids don't have bedtime. Now, see, they got double black circles on their eyes. They need to go to sleep. They need sleep. Okay, you need to go to sleep, mama, daddies. Okay, but put those cell phones, like they lock them up in the school, put those cell phones in your bedroom and tell them no. Their brains are still developing. They don't even develop until 25. So we talking about 13, 14, 7, 8 years old. They on there just strolling away. They did no homework. They ain't read no books, okay? And take your kids to the library, okay? Take them to the bookstore. Do outings, okay? I remember my daughter going to see Cat in the Hat. She was so scared. I was like, oh, my goodness. Anyway, so make sure to lock those cell phones away each night. And if they're like, how am I get up in the morning? Alarm clock. Each one of my kids, I want to buy one. Alarm clock. Or I'm going to wake you up anyway because I'm going to be up, okay? So make sure to lock them up, okay? All right? Let me see. I think I talked about a lot of stuff, okay? Because this is the one thing I want to talk about is when people think about socialization, social media is a tool. It was never meant, I'm going to say, to take the place of human interaction, like socializing. You see everybody coming up with a podcast. Everybody's like outside, go outside. Yes, everybody's outside because the thing about it is you get bored. And the more social media, the more isolation you get and depression sets in. And that's when that stinking thinking gets started. So make sure to put that social media away. Okay, go outside, have human interaction touch somebody, hug somebody, do something, not something, but do, do your thing. You got to make sure of that. So I cannot say that enough. It's essential to the mind. It's essential to your mental health. Because like I said, we talk about everything mental health, healthy mental health and unhealthy mental health. So going outside, getting off of that social media, going to exercise. I just started. I'm so proud of myself. I just started the Tai Chi walking. Okay, I could not go to sleep last night. I think I worked only 10 minutes, and I'm like, I could not go to sleep. But you want to make sure of that because, like I say, you laugh and you talking, and you realize once you go out with somebody, like, I really had a good time. And I wasn't holding my phone, trying to see. When you go out, put that phone up or leave it in the car. Maybe if you got kids, you probably don't want to leave it in the car, but you know what I'm saying. Okay? So, yeah, go outside. So like I said, building community awareness of people with a comprehension. When you're having a conversation, you're comprehending what somebody's saying. So guess what? Your mental health is working, right? Those neutrons are working. Like I said, so face-to-face, eye-to-eye contact. I grew up with eye-to-eye contact. When you don't look somebody in the face, that's really disrespectful, okay? Have dinner. Some people do a lot of outings, activities with sports with their children, but try at least to have 2 to 3 nights of dinner. Because I remember visiting the Martin Luther King house in Atlanta, and one thing they talked about there was number one that was strong is they sat down for dinner. And they had conversations, and they talked about each person's day. Because that's make them, people feel special. It's like, oh, my dad, he's so busy, he's doing this and doing that. Or my mom, and she really want to know how was my day? Like, literally, how was your day? And if it was a good day, it was a good day, and that's great. So you want to definitely make sure of that. And the thing about it is, when you have social events, sleepovers or whatever, I don't know if some people have those sleepovers, but when you have that, then just make sure that you have that conversation. You listening to your kids talking. That's one thing I did. I had a lot of birthday parties. My house growing up was the house to be, so my house was the house to be as well. But I'm also listening to the conversations that my children are having with their friends. And I get a chance to see, like, who is the one that's aggressive, who's the little shit starter, who is the one just, negative or whatever. So I can remember my son was a good drawer. He draws very, very well. Probably, I don't know, ever since he's probably in 3rd grade, he would have things of, open house exhibits and, and things like that. And his friends would always praise him, real friends. But I remember one boy came over. They grew up together, then they kind of contact each other back. And I can remember after he left, the little boy, with my son, I went in his room and all his pictures was down. See, that's a parent. I don't know if you call it a helicopter parent or whatever, but I'm a very observant parent. Let me just say that. Okay, and I noticed that his pictures was down. And I'm like, oh, so why are your pictures down? I asked him. And he was like, oh, I outgrew that. That was kid stuff. And I'm like, oh, but yesterday it wasn't. But see, when somebody enters the environment, they're either going to bring positive or they're going to bring negative. Hopefully they bring positive, right? So I told my son, I said, no, all your friends really enjoy and support and love to see you draw in your drawings that's on the wall. The person who came here does not. And you have to teach your kids that sometimes kids are envy of you. They're jealous of you. So I said, guess what? Put those back. Because you don't go by, you're not a follower of what somebody said. You love drawing, and that's what you're going to continue to do. So just to let you guys know that, I hope that I enlightened you guys. Like I said, schedule time. I enlightened you and gave you some tips or whatever. But I also, let me see, I got one more thing, guys. Empty nester, bittersweet when our kids grow up. Then what we do? Because we scheduling this and we scheduling that. And then when they grow up and they go off to college, then you sitting up here like, oh my God, it's super, super quiet. And then that's when you want to give them everything. Oh, and this and that. And if this happened and that happened and da-da-da-da. But I remember reading a book by Maria Shriver, one of the Kennedy's niece, right, who was married to Arnold. Her book is, her daughter was going off to college. And she just kept telling them over, this and another thing. Her book is called, And One More Thing Before You Go. So it was published in 2005, and that's a good read. Like I said, I read a lot. So if you want to look that book up, and get some pointers. Also, if you want to look up a good book that I read, it was Daughters and Mothers by Carol Northrup. So she's a psychologist, and I just thought that it's just some books that you just need to know about how to rear your kids better, and you just put your own little twist on there. You know what I mean? So some of the things like being an empty nester, now you got to recreate your life, right? You and your husband, you got to recreate or if you're single, whatever, you got to recreate. So now you got to go out, you got to fill this time because it's quiet in the house, it's driving you crazy. You can't keep calling the kids like, what you doing? They get TikTok like, oh my God, here goes mom. So you can do tennis, start some tennis, some knitting. Like I said, I started Tai Chi. I travel. I read books. I started writing a book, So just make sure, just start fulfilling stuff. They got the Traveling Divas, ski clubs. They got everybody going to Thailand. I don't know what's there, but I'm going to Ghana. But I'm just saying. So make sure that you do everything you can to be the best parent. But also, like they say on an airplane, you put your oxygen on first, okay? Because when your mental health is not good, your child's mental health is not good. And statistics says that a mother who has good, healthy mental health, that child does better. But I'm also say the father too, because if the father in the household, I'm going to say it too, but it's mainly, it says the mother. So make sure, moms, no matter whatever you got going on that's toxic, negative or whatever, eliminate those things, because your kids are only there for a short time. When I tell you, all of a sudden, I have my kids really late in life, and they up and gone. They married. I mean, not married, but maybe. But no. But just make sure that you do the things that you need to do. Like take pictures. I'm always I got 15,000 pictures in my phone. I'm always looking for storage all the time. And they always say, you need to do this. No, I just like strolling. Sometimes I'm just strolling, looking at them from when they was little or whatever. I'm just proud to be a mom, a parent. So I just love that part. So I got so many pictures, So we building this foundation. And so I hope that I have enlightened you. I hope you got some tips about building the different, make sure a foundation, because the things that our kids are going through right now, we didn't go through those things. And we was also sheltered, but social media probably is the biggest thing when you talk about bullying and things like that and suicide. So you want to make sure that you give them the best, because when they fall back, even when we get older and we get depressed or whatever, we sit back and you might hear a song and it just changed your whole attitude, right? So you want to make sure that your kids are mentally strong to survive, because I do believe certain things kids do have to go through, to make them stronger. I was telling my son, him living off of campus, that sometimes you got to go through stuff. You got to figure things out. Yes, but the fundamentals are still, the foundation are still there, So make sure you do that. I do got one more thing, guys. I know I keep saying one more thing, but have you guys heard of no contact adult children? I told you I'm always on something. So I saw Oprah had this meeting or whatever, how she has these little classes, and it was people talking about they would no contact with their children for, like, one lady said 5 years, one young adult, and I was like, oh my goodness. And it was, I guess it, pretty much you go uncontact if you got abusive parent or things like that, but really going no contact on minute, maybe just getting on your nerve, calling all the time or whatever. But I thought that was odd. I was like, wow, they just had enough of their parents, no contact, for various reasons, like I said, and then also I was listening to Frank Ski. I don't know if you guys know Frank Ski. He's a DJ. He is a DJ in Atlanta, and he talked about no commitment. These adult children, waiting on your grandkids. Me, I'm waiting on my grandkids. Nobody's trying to have grandkids. Children. And that's what they talk about. They don't want student loans. They want to, do whatever it is other than going to college. Because I guess they, the kids see that their parents, then student loan debt, they got a mortgage debt, credit card debt, car debt, all this, and they're like, oh no, looks a little stressful to me, you know. So these kids are going, you know, no commitment and just living their best life. I mean, doing a traveling thing and just staying under the radar, or just not trying to stress out. I mean, so I guess it's a good thing too if you got a job. But I just wanted to see if you guys heard of that, no contact with adult children, and also no commitment with adult children. So, for real. Thank you for joining me. I hope this started a conversation with your family and everything like that. So I want to say, if you missed any of my episodes, because this is actually episode 10, but last week it was technical difficulties, so we just recapped it and added some other things to it. So just make sure to find me on YouTube, Mardissa Ann. And remember, life is a journey. Enjoy the ride. Bye.